Well, hello, that's me again. Today is August 27th, 2025. It is Wednesday, I believe. Is it Wednesday? I don't know. I kind of got lost in the space-time continuum because that's my life now. I'm constantly doing something related to all kinds of the geopolitics. And what you see in the beginning is the rehearsal of the Beijing parade, which will happen soon, for the 80th anniversary of the defeat of victory over Japan, and essentially the new chapter in the history of China. Mr. Putin will be there. For example, Mr. Volodin, who is the Speaker of Russian Duma, he is already there, and Mr. Putin will be there also for a long time, for 4 days. So this will be a very important demonstration of the unity, especially considering the fact that the Red Army, of course, had a huge hand in defeating of, well, Japanese. And if you do not know what I'm talking about, I would suggest you to read this, obviously now immortal book, in a sense that it is the best reference you can possibly find in the English language literature on the military history, and about how Russians, Red Army, dealt with the Kwantung Army, almost 1 million strong. They just simply swept it away. Well, after the defeating of Wehrmacht and Axis, so to speak, European Axis. So it was the best army in the world. And so, what can I say? We're gonna wait and see how it's going to be arranged. It's obviously going to be a very, very impressive ceremony. We know this now. And if that hasn't been enough, now it's officially now actually Russian and Chinese submarines up doing the joint patrols. Who would have thought? Right. So it's interesting, isn't it? But we will start with this thing. And I will continue to do it time after time after time because, you know what, evidently this topic is not going to go away. And the Western public will continue to be absolutely brainwashed by all those so-called specialists and experts. And how to put it? Okay, let's start with this. And, good Lord, National Security Journal. Okay, National Security Journal says that the Ukraine war is already lost. Well, hello, they should have asked me in 2023, I would have told them, and especially when considering the numbers which I had, the dynamics of the losses, which already spelled the doom after this famous counter-offensive. So, Mr. Jack Bugby writes about that key points and summary. While the fighting rages on, a hard look at the map suggests Russia may have already achieved a de facto victory in Ukraine. So, and it's not about the 20% of the territory or what have you, but this is what they continue to say. And this is Mr. Bubsby. So look at this. So, the Ukraine war looks over. When Putin launched special military operation in Ukraine 3.5 years ago, he did so with several very clear goals. 200,000 soldiers would take control of Ukraine's capital city, Kyiv, overthrow its pro-Western government, and demilitarize and denazify the country. Here is the lie. Russians never planned to take Kyiv. This whole narrative, which originated in the deep recesses of all kinds of losers from CIA, MI6, and Pentagon, is just to somehow sweeten this bitter pill that, well, obviously they do not understand modern war. No, it was the demonstration of force whose only actually aim was to force Ukraine at the negotiating table, which did happen in Istanbul, which of course was sabotaged by the United States, Biden administration, and their, you know what, clown, which was of course Mr. Boris Johnson. So they continue to lie. But then again, when you look attentively at Mr. Bugby CV, look at this guy. Look. Hey, Jack Bugby is 1945 breaking news editor. He is a British author, counter-extremism researcher, and journalist based in New York. Reporting on the UK, Europe, and US, he works to analyze and understand left-wing and right-wing radicalization and reports on Western governments' approaches to the pressing issues of today. His books and research papers expose those themes and propose pragmatic solutions to our increasing polarized society. In other words, the guy is a complete moron done militarily. He would know the first thing about operations and strategy. But here we are. He continues to push this narrative. He is not alone. The so-called what's the name of it? The Responsible Statecraft magazine. It's not responsible statecraft. It's Mr. Basevich and others who just needed some kind of the sinecure, and they needed the grants, including, by the way, from people from Soros, no less. So for this Responsible Statecraft Institute, or whatever the hell they call it. And so considering the fact who they have as their experts, like Anatol Livin, who wouldn't know anything about Russia, let alone war, but that's the level of those people, and they position themselves as the non-interventionist people. No, they're just full of you-know-what. But here we have Jennifer Kavanaugh. Why Putin is winning. Last week's summit revealed just how little leverage the US has while Europe looks panicked and Zelensky is painted into a corner. Well, I'm writing about it for the last 3.5 years, and again, the result was known from the get-go. It was just a matter how Russians will approach it and what tools to use it. But no, look at this. She writes it today and repeats the same garbage. Putin clearly fared best of all. He got a face-to-face meeting with his American counterpart on US soil, avoided the economic penalties that Trump had threatened, and continued his war without making notable concessions. Putin had long wanted a bilateral with Trump. No, he didn't. In fact, it was Trump who begged Putin to meet him. But of course, Jennifer Kavanaugh, you will see yourself why she doesn't know, and she cannot find her ass with her both hands in the brightly lit room, but she lies through her teeth, which is expected from this also responsible statecraft, and especially their cabal of the so-called Russian experts, like Anatol Livin, who would know the first thing about anything in Russia. But he is, yeah, sure, he's expert. So not only for the legitimacy such as meeting would give Russia's great power aspirations, but also because keeping Trump engaged in negotiations is essential to Putin's war aims. Well, who is this Jennifer Kavanaugh? Okay, let's take a look at the Kavanaugh. Oh my God, and here it is. Look at her. She is definitely qualified, right? Senior fellow and director of military analysis. The first question is, does Jennifer Kavanaugh knows what military analysis is? I can bet she will not even dare to discuss me and debate me. No, Jennifer Kavanaugh is a fellow and director of military analysis and defense priorities, a political scientist by training. So that means she has no education, period. Kavanaugh has spent her career studying U.S. national security and defense policy. Kavanaugh's research focuses on U.S. military strategy, force structure, and defense budgeting. I have news for Kavanaugh, as well for the Mr. Basevich, as well for this bunch of the sinecure-abusing, so-called, responsible statecraft. There's nothing responsible about what they're writing there. So that actually U.S. military doesn't have strategy. United States as such, as the state, doesn't have strategy. What passes for strategy in the United States is a bunch of the basically business plans, quoting my good acquaintance of Mr. Alexander Rogers, Russian economist and analyst, that those people do not understand what it is. They have no clue. It is not taught in military academies in the United States. What is taught in military academies, let alone in those political scientist courses, are fairy tales related to economy, fairy tales related to military history, and especially so, fairy tales as related to operations and strategy. Jennifer Kavanaugh doesn't know what she's talking about. Neither do most of those people who teach, like, Sarah Payne from U.S. Naval War College, when they talk about strategy, when they talk about Russia, because they have no clue about correlation of forces and means. They do not understand how real economy affects the performance of the armies, how real strategies and grand strategies of the state are designed and promoted and then implemented. They do not have a clue about it, because what passes in the United States is a basically cabal of the think tanks which pretend that they do some kind of analytical work. They don't. They are all academic frauds and failures, as you saw yourself, because in the end, we're sitting here today facing actually the 500-year long, domination of the West. Well, it's end, period. It finished. And it's fait accompli, and what can I say? But yes, those people continue to press this narrative that somehow Vladimir Putin wanted to take Kyiv, that Vladimir Putin sought actually meeting with Mr. Trump. I mean, they lied. They're liars. They're compulsive liars. This is what you get when you go and study in the American and Western universities in the so-called humanities programs, especially political science, which is not science. It's fake science. It's not an education. Anybody with half brain can study so-called political science. So, and what can I say? They continue to spread narrative. This is the only thing they are good at. Any kind of the practical means, practical skills or practical applications to any kind of things of the statecraft, let alone warfare, they have zero. They have no clue. And just to demonstrate to you, for example, Mr. Radakin and the other dude from, so-called, officers of the UK military came to Ukraine. They saying that, yeah, we're gonna support you. Britain will take part, very seriously in the whatever the peace arrangements. Well, okay, London can do whatever it wants, and nobody cares really what they want. But here is the issue which we have to keep in mind. Western press is the garbage. We know this. So now suddenly we have these narratives being pushed by all kinds of the outlets, which is absolutely normal. That's what they do. This is the only thing they can do. Lie. Average US or UK journal has no principles, no humanity in them, no integrity. And so what they say, oh, the Wall Street Journal says, okay, there you go. Yeah. Trump wants European troops in Ukraine. Europe's voters aren't convinced. The public is wary of the push that some governments are making to deploy thousands of troops in Ukraine if a peace deal is reached. So it's becoming nauseating. This is all only done for reasons of covering up the catastrophic defeat of the combined West, headed, under the leadership of the United States. And so what they do, they push all kinds of the narratives, and Russians already have been very clear about this. No peacekeepers, period. Anything what is discussed here is nothing more than propaganda, which the only thing, and again, the average Wall Street Journal, correspondent is moron. They are cretins. The only thing they do is they do what they told to do in terms of pushing all kinds of the ideologic narratives. In fact, there is news actually right now that most of the people in Europe do not want that, while French, of course, want that. Granted that there will be no war there. Well, how French from them. Now we have Financial Times. Yeah, Financial Times also does this. U.S. offers air and intelligence support to post-war force in Ukraine. Washington prepared to contribute surveillance, command and control, and air defense assets, says European officials. Well, European officials, they are worthless in a literal, physical and political sense, because everything they say is garbage. For example, like Mr. Rutte from NATO, he runs around, spewing BS, while in reality, as I agree with Scott Ritter, that NATO is finished. That's it. NATO is organization. It's not a military force. It's pathetic, honestly. And anybody who thinks that NATO somehow has any kind of the bearing or influence on the fate of Ukraine, I have a bridge to sell you. Brooklyn Bridge, no less. Prepayment in cash only. So, and what can I say? I want to bring here why. Here is what Russian military, they are really having a blast with this. This is how British Army trains its soldiers. This is not combat training, I can tell you immediately. This is the training on how to kill your personnel immediately. I don't know what those guys are training, but as I already stated, the military education in the West is a joke. It's the officer corps, for the most, not all, there are still competent people, but they are joke. And this is what they are training right now in United Kingdom. Then we have these strange things about, situation in Hamburg, as you can see yourself. For some reason, the plant which produces coffee machines and vacuum cleaners, for some unknown reason, it has something detonating there. I never heard of the coffee machines and vacuum cleaners detonating with that intensity, honestly. First time I ever saw this, but this is Europe, and that is why I have to explain over and over again. Europe is done. Russians are not going to be talking to Europeans. Europe can go to hell and die, and nobody cares if they will begin to shoot each other, kill each other. It's Europeans who wanted the war. Now, when things go really bad, they suddenly do not want even peacekeepers. Well, remember propaganda, 2022, 2023, of all those Russian subhumans and animals raping Ukrainian women, killing children, committing all those atrocities. Yeah, you can sell anything to average European. He has no brains. And I'm sorry to say that, and there will be people who say, oh, don't generalize. I'm not generalizing. Well, actually, I am, but obviously I have very good understanding the separation of people who are still retained this civilizational sense, humanity, and brains in Europe, with the majority, and which is brainwashed, and they would like nothing more than to kill Russians, of course, as long as they are not involved and they continue to feel, comfortable and safe in their whatever localities they are. And whenever we talk about this, it has to be repeated ad nauseam. Europe is done. Russians are done with Europe. And when there will be celebration in Beijing in coming days of the 80th anniversary of the victory of Japan, the fact that Vladimir Putin and Mr. Xi will be standing next to each other, this is the message. And the fact is that India finally is beginning to make some moves also in rectifying the relations with China. These are bad signs for Europeans and for Europe. And, well, in terms of United States, as I constantly state, and I repeat it again, I will repeat it again and again and again. Sakhalin 1. What is Sakhalin 1 and Sakhalin 2 also? These are the project, gigantic project there, Sakhalin Island, which, by the way, Russians took back to Russia from Japanese in 1945, is surrounded by the huge resources, huge resources of the oil and all kinds of the byproduct. And this is a gigantic undertaking, by the way, of which the Japan is a part of. So we have now, I always like how secret, it's so funny. It's so secret that Wall Street Journal reports now that Exxon held secret talks with Rosneft about going back to Russia. After huddling with President Trump in Alaska, President Vladimir Putin told reporters Russia and the US could do more business together. For example, between their Pacific coastlines. We look forward to dealing, Trump replied. Okay, what are they talking about? And here is the Exxon issue here. So, as you can see yourself, here it is. All right. So, in secret talks, evidently they are so secret that everybody knows about it. That is the most idiotic statement you can possibly know, because also they are in the news. But under the Biden and Trump administration, Exxon and other companies have had U.S. permission and licenses from the Treasury Department to hold talks about stranded assets with Russian counterparts. Russia is not going to get, most likely, its frozen assets anytime soon because, well, Europeans are thieves, basically. I'm talking about elites, obviously. I'm not saying that all people in Europe are thieves. But no, the European elites and American elites, they are thieves, robber barons, and so they stole Russian assets, and I doubt that they will be returned anytime soon. Maybe in the future, sometime, but okay, Russia survived it just fine. And so They talk, obviously, the Wall Street Journal refers to people familiar with the discussion. The first round of negotiations took place shortly after Exxon exit from Russia in 2022, and they have been actually in contact pretty much ever since. In parallel, Exxon executives have asked U.S. government for support if the company goes back to Russia, and received a sympathetic hearing, said a senior administration official. CEO Darren Wood discussed Exxon's possible return with Trump at the White House in recent weeks. Yeah, we know this. It's not a secret. We know that, and actually Vladimir Putin himself mentioned this fact that, well, and the Russian press also spoke about it openly, even before Vladimir Putin and Trump met in Alaska, that Exxon was in negotiations, and of course, you have to be a complete maroon to actually lose this opportunity to take part in one of the most richest, coastal and around Sakhalin resources, basically, and of oil. I don't know. It's so obvious. The very interesting thing which we need to keep an eye on, and this has been confirmed by Mr. Rybkov, no less, first deputy of Russian foreign minister. So you can take this to the bank, because yeah, Russians usually don't lie. And when they make those statements, that means what? Something is happening. There is a negotiation. There are conversations and, debates maybe, I don't know, but about resuming of the air communications between the United States and Russia. Let me put it this way. Today, if you want to fly from United States to Russia or back, you have to fly at best Turkish Airlines from JFK, and then it's a 13-hour flight. Then you have the layover in Istanbul, and then you take again Turkish Airlines, and 4.5 hours to Moscow. 17.5 hours flight. Horrible. Through Dubai, it's even longer. But it used to be that you fly from JFK, Moscow direct. 9 hours. That's it. That's amazing. And the reason it is important, it's not just about the restoration of the air communications between United States and Russia. No. There is another factor of it. And this factor, I spoke about it before, and I want to stress it. European airlines boycotted Russian airlines, as did American Airlines. Well, guess what? Russia immediately closed her very, very useful, very, very comfortable airspace. And guess what? Suddenly, the flight from London to, let's say, Shanghai, which usually would take, well, very short time, now has to be flown, bypass routes, because you cannot fly through this wonderfully strategic airspace of Russia. And it became longer by many hours. Not to speak about, of course, of the costs and, just physical exhaustion of people who fly this. Guess who benefited from it? Correct. Chinese airlines, because China is Russia's strategic partner. In fact, we're talking about some kind of alliance there, and Chinese are using Russian airspace beautifully. And then suddenly Chinese airlines make all those British Airways, all those Air Frances, all those what have you, are absolutely non-competitive. That goes also to the American airlines, which used to use the Russian airspace. So, what can I say? So, and will they come to some kind of the positive development there, and will make a decision to open this communication, the commute, if you wish, air commute between United States and Russia? I hope so. And actually, I have my own, personal, vested interest in that. But this is good. At least they're talking. And as I already stated many times, talking is much better than fighting. Way, way better. And if it happens, that would be wonderful. And that automatically means that Russians will open their airspace for the American airlines. I can tell you one airline which would love to do this, Delta. They were doing this before. They would love to do it again. So, United, I don't know, but probably. But Delta would love to do this, very much. So, now, if we go back to our line of contact, since we cannot really avoid this talking, so this is the latest situation with Russians are, flying those FABs with OMPK, which is the controlled units. They blow things up there for those people who love the explosions and all kinds of things. And as you can see, so that's another basically bridge is being hit by FAB. And now if we go to the latest tally, it's from yesterday. So we have this about 1200, and yeah, the horrible, butcher's bill is tremendous. And then we go and take a look, for example, at Zaporizhia map. We go to our good friend Marat Khairulin and Colonel Popov, and here's the map from the 2 days ago. And Zaporizhia suddenly, it's suddenly active too. So as you can see yourself, the Novoselka and Gulay Pole, you see those arrows? Yeah, those things are Russians breaking out. So, and what can I say? It just tells you that Russia is free. And Russian armed forces were actually pretty much free to conduct any kind of the offensive operations on several axes simultaneously. Russians, as I constantly stress, have no reason to actually be in rush, because in the end, everything comes down to this. As you can see yourself, this is yet another evidence of great recruiting practices in Ukraine. This one is in Odessa. It's basically called kidnapping. And, well, what can I say? It's just the way it is. And that is why when I see those Radakins, all those Kellogg's, who evidently helped Russian intelligence to track the very important secret places where very many Ukrainian and American and other NATO, not officials, but officers have been killed after that. Well, Russians have their really hypersonic weapons. They can strike it at will anywhere else. But when I see those people, I have nothing but contempt to them. Reason being that they support regime which actually slaughtered its own people, throwing it in the Russian meat grinder, and without even any chance of defeating Russia. And that's the point. This is the only time when I disagree with Scott Ritter, that there was an idea put forward by all kinds of those CIA analysts and all those Pentagon guys that, yeah, let's suck Russians into this, war, and then, the Putin regime collapses, and there you go, we won the war. Well, they at least learned that, yeah, the winning of the war means achieving political aims of the war. But the problem is they're not good. They're not good in anything. And I will continue to expose this, not only incompetence, and also, envy, professional jealousy. I will continue to expose their war criminal nature, because those people, they don't count Ukrainians for humans. I don't like Ukrainians either, but I still understand that many of them are humans. There are Nazis? No, they're not humans. They need to be annihilated. But most of them, they're people, very badly misled, very brainwashed, very on the level, not on the verge. It is actually, if you look today what is happening in Ukraine, it is the complete mental breakdown of the country, which lives in the virtual. It's a virtual country. It's a virtual state. It cannot exist without any help from the United States and Europe. And Europeans are soiling their pants from the whole notion that Russia and United States will settle on something, and the United States will just simply leave it for Europeans to deal with this, because they're cowards. Europeans, they cannot defend themselves, even to imagine for some reason why Russia would assault Europe. Russians are living better than Europe now. Those who do not understand that, it's their problem. But again, if you don't have, any other, occupation, try to apply to rent or, responsible statecraft, or Washington Post for that matter. Maybe they will hire you, because there's nothing more than the American, academic fraud who went through, as people just, I was stunned. There are courses on the Taylor Swift offered in the Wyoming Bowling University. What can I say? That's everything you need to know. So this is everything I wanted to tell you today. And as always, in the end, those who like what I do, please subscribe to my channel. And also can afford a coffee or two, You know, if I support me on Patreon, you know, buy me a coffee in 2, 5 maybe. No, I'm just kidding. And again, my profound thanks to my wonderful patrons. You are the guys, the main reason why I'm staying in this business, and I cannot express enough my appreciation. I know many of you. I just don't have enough time to respond to everybody. So that's it for today, guys. Have a nice rest of the week, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.